It's day 2 of the Nigerian Economic Summit, and we are live in the Federal Capital Territory. I'm Joe Hansen. I'm not alone, of course. We've got the regular host on Breakfast Central, Olive and Osaroge. But yesterday was very fantastic because the conversations indeed elicited a lot of conversations from the other end, talking about the attendees and those who were able to watch. Most importantly, we also had the Vice President who was here, and we'll be looking at some of the things that were said. A clear review of what happened just yesterday. Osaroge is here as well. Olive is here. We're going to look at our takes, most importantly. I mean, for me, I would say it's a conversation that had to do with going 30 years back to what the NESG has been able to achieve, from the CEOs, the board, the presidents, and the fact that it started during the military regime and how they were able to have moved past that military regime down to democracy and implement a lot of changes which we are equally enjoying today.
Right. I mean, it was quite an interesting conference. Day one was a very good opening. There are a lot of conversations that were highlighted looking at what inclusive development meant and what inclusive development means in the current landscape that we are experiencing in Nigeria. I think another thing that particularly stood out for me were also the interviews, the one-on-one interviews that we on News Central had with some of the guests. We had, someone who had served on the board for 13 years, was in the inaugural board, and sharing the journey of what it was like from the first Nigerian Economic Summit in comparison to the current Nigerian Economic Summit, and then also looking at what Nigeria was at that time to what Nigeria is now. And the interesting thing was that the reason for the first Nigeria Economic Summit was that Nigeria wasn't working 30 years ago. That was the reason why they set this up. That was one of the reasons why they set this up, because they needed to find ways for the country to work. 30 years later, what is sad is that a number of Nigerians still share same sentiment. And the Vice President's speech, yes, alluded to the fact that Nigerians are suffering, talked about the fact that even though Nigerians are suffering, the government has to make bold policies, and that these bold policies will yield returns very soon if we can stay the course. And that's another conversation we saw being spread around, which is something that we've had. We've heard this through different speeches from the presidency, different speeches from those in government, but the question is when and how long.
Yeah, and I mean, totally agree with, that point that you just raised, when, and how long, but the World Bank Vice President yesterday, if you remember, said it would take between 10 to 15 years of the current economic policies, before we start to see some improvement, if we continue on this trajectory for the next 10 to 15 years. And if you remember yesterday when he said that, the whole crowd
erupted,
yes. Because a lot of people are, asking themselves, if they would survive the next 10 to 15 years, seeing the way things currently are, and it's not just about changing policies, it's really about the safety nets that you also put in place, and of course the Vice President mentioned that yesterday, that one of the things that they must focus on are the safety nets, for the average Nigerian to enable them survive these current economic policies that are being implemented for the next, long while, and how many of these safety nets have really been put in place. Another thing that I thought was pretty interesting, when I interviewed the former Statistician General of the country, Yemi Kale, I spoke with him yesterday, and of course, he shared his views on the NBS and the new metrics with which they rate unemployment. And he had mentioned it before, but it was interesting to hear him say it once again, and he doesn't agree with this new unemployment metric that we're currently using, which has put Nigeria's unemployment at 5.3%. You're rating unemployment by working hours, which is not, it doesn't necessarily fit for the Nigerian reality, of our workforce. So I feel like those were some important things. The Vice President also, saying that people should stop, taking advantage of Nigeria's current economic reality to speak bad about the country, taking advantage rather of, I think he said, weaponizing, that's the word he used, weaponizing Nigeria's current economic realities. And so those were key points, A lot of promises were also made, a lot of projections were also made, but, did we have a proper analysis of where we are and where we are going? Reasonably. They said, you know, of course, everyone we spoke who was either on the board of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group or somewhere around it, said that they have achieved a lot of progress. It may not have put Nigeria at par with many other countries in the world, but they, you know, can point out some things that they've done. They repeatedly also blamed the pandemic. The vice president also blamed the pandemic yesterday as well.
COVID-19.
Yes, you know, COVID-19 pandemic as one of the reasons Nigeria's economy dipped. Many people would not agree, you know, because, of course, the pandemic affected the whole world.
Globally, yes.
Exactly, but our dip was just too insane for you to blame just the pandemic. You know, it's still policies, you know, and the either ill-timed policies or just, you know, completely wrong policies at one time or the other.
If you also look at the fact that, I mean, I was opportune to also speak with the chairman for the NESG, and in our conversation I asked, does he think that the current administration is implementing too many policies, which has led to what we see today? Nigerians are actually going through a tough time. Just yesterday we did hear that the price of gas has gone up by a huge percentage. Not forgetting too that Nigerians are equally grappling with the reality that food items are going up day by day, week by week, and so on and so forth. And he said he doesn't think it's a reflection of the policies that are being implemented, regardless of how many they are. But he thinks that it's just the fact that there has been a lot of damage done in the past to the economy, and therefore the process that we're going through is a surgical process, and the surgery would be done in no time, after which Nigerians would have to wait more. So it kind of like correlated with what was said throughout yesterday. Everybody's starting to say, you know what, we need to give ample time, more time. Good enough. One person was bold enough, English, to come out and say, listen, it's going to take 15 years. But he said, let's give it more time. But the question really is, are Nigerians ready to wait for 15 years with what we find on ground?
You know, another thing, and this was the panel before the vice president officially opened the event, where one of the panelists had spoken about the fact that it's not enough for the government to say that there needs to be some adjustments made, that there needs to be an exemplifying of these adjustments. We need to see that, you know, the government in itself is cutting the cost of governance, is reducing, you know, conversations about over-bloated budgets. We need to see that these changes are implemented, because whilst you're saying that is one thing for us to put an end, whilst you're saying that we should try to cut, you know, how much we're spending, or we should prepare to wait, it's important to know that you, on the other hand, you are exemplifying that, you know, diligence and that waiting by not having a bloated budget, a bloated cabinet, and cutting the cost of governance. But these are still conversations that will continue today, as it's day 2 of the Nigeria Economic Summit, with the conversation looking at collaborative, you know, collaborative conversations to look at competitiveness, stability, and inclusive development, and what that means. We'll now head over to our Lagos studios to connect with Mazinu and share with you what our top stories are.
Well, thank you very much, Olive, Osarge, and of course, Joy Hansen back here in Lagos. Well, we're expecting to hear all of those details from you guys in Abuja. Now, let's move on to the top stories this morning that are making rounds in the news. NES 30 VP calls for unity in rebuilding the economy. And of course, the federal government unveils system for tax compliance and fiscal reforms. Also making top headlines this morning, analysis, Rivers and Edo State political landscape and harnessing economic growth amid hardship. Welcome back to Lagos, where we're still carrying on with the live broadcast of the NESG 2024. But first, this piece of information here. Now, Nigeria's federal government has said that it is building a framework to ensure tax compliance amongst businesses and corporations as part of its fiscal reforms. Chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms made this known at the sidelines of the ongoing 30th Nigerian Economic Summit held in the nation's capital, Abuja. News Central's Joshua Imarai has more on this report.
The engagement is the Fiscal and Monetary Policy Reform Workshop, which was held on the sidelines of the 30th Nigerian Economic Summit. The workshop with the theme Removing Barriers in Private Sector Investment saw the convergence of senior officials in Nigeria's financial sector. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform says that efforts are being made to ensure maximum tax compliance among businesses.
The way we are developing the system, we will use a primary data identification, which is NIN for individuals. We'll use your RC number with CAC for businesses. We're developing one for government, corporation doing business. Everything you do that is an economic activity will be linked to that data, that ID. When you declare your income and you say you earn 2 million naira in a year, the system will say, how did you earn 2 million and you spent 40 million?
The chairman also announced during the workshop that from January 2025, Nigeria's wealthiest citizens will be subject to a personal income tax of about 25%.
If you earn 1.5 million naira a month or less, your personal income tax bill will go down. Of course, at the lower end, completely exempted. But if you earn more than that amount, you see it going up incrementally up to 25%. Today, if you earn 100 million naira a month, nobody hits 19% effective personal income tax rate. We're taking that up to 25%.
The Central Bank of Nigeria also asked that it is employing all strategies to tame inflation, assuring that no stone will be left unturned.
We are tightening the contractionary policy. That's what we're doing. That is, we want to make sure as much as possible we reduce money supply and circulation, because we know there is a positive correlation between money supply and the rate of inflation. So if we say we are trying to fight inflation, to rein inflation, you have to be conscious of what are the quantum of money supply and circulation.
The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reform says that the bill proposing an increase in the value-added tax from 7.5% to 10% is already before the National Assembly for consideration. He adds that if considered, the increase will be implemented by January 2025. In Abuja for News Central, I am Joshua Imarayi.
And now we move back to our Abuja studios, where we have our presenters waiting to give us more details about the NESG 2024. Osarage and Olive, please, if you will. Hello, Olive. How are you?
For bringing us breakfast headlines. And now we're back here in the Federal Capital Territory to look at what exactly the top stories are. And our first top story this morning is going to be looking at the politics in Edo and Rivers State. And this morning we're going to be joined by the founder of Albino Foundation. He is an expert in policy development and advocacy. He's a human rights activist and sits on various committees at the United Nations and the African Union. We're joined this morning by Mr. Jake Epelle. Good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. You pronounced my name so well.
Oh, thank you. That's
But we made a change. The organization is no longer the Albino Foundation. It's TAF Africa, the All Right Foundation.
Fantastic.
And I know you don't have all the time for me to explain why we had to.
Can you give us a brief explanation?
Well, the thing is, albinism, I'm a person with albinism. There's nobody like an albino. And using the term albino is derogatory because albino is a compound word from the Latin word albos, and it means extremely white. But then, in the context of social development, you don't put the person, you don't put the condition before the person. You put the condition before, you put the person before the condition. So like, I am a person with albinism. My other segment of disability is a person with disability, not disabled people. And these things matters because it focuses on derogation of the individual, dehumanization of the individual, yes, rather than talking about a condition that is often temporary, because certain disability are acquired, some are inborn, so you have to deal with that. So events happen around an individual, not that person. Yeah. You probably have failed, like I have failed in several times in business, but
That wasn't defined.
That's an event. It has nothing to do with me.
I think that it was very important, that you explained and highlighted this, and you changed the name. It's a learning curve and a learning process for a number of people, and very also important for us because part of the conversations that we're having here at the Nigerian Economic Summit are focused on inclusive development and what that means. So now let's get into our conversation for the morning, and we're looking at the political crisis that has bedeviled certain states in Nigeria, focusing particularly on Rivers State and Edo State. We'll begin with Rivers State and get your general overview of all that's happened in Rivers State.
I think I'll talk about Rivers State politics with two lenses. Number one is the cause. What is the cause? Talking about the effect, and then the effect. Now, you see, pointedly, the issue about Rivers State goes beyond Fubara and Wike. There's been an underlying issues that have not been properly addressed. Issues of ethnicity and certain ethnic group dominating the leadership structure of the state. The issue of resource control, where a certain group is impoverished and the other group seems to be thriving, whether it's education or economic empowerment. The other thing is the build-up of certain group of young men and women who feels that the nation had actually taken life out of them, and they want to take things by themselves, take the law into account and do whatever they want to do. So it's a very complex situation that has a multiplier effect. But as of today, the crisis is focused on two individuals, Fubara and Wike. One is current, the other is ex. Unfortunately, Mr. Wike, the FCT minister, the former governor, wants to be where he is, which is FCT, and remote control what happens in Rivers State. And something about power and balance of power, there's an extent to which you can push your influence, and it turns out to be negative. Unfortunately, my dear sister, the greatest loser in all of this political fiasco is the people. And I'm very worried about the fact that these individuals are not given room for governance and the dividends of governance which should go to the people. So you see there's a slow start, there's a struggle with the current administration to move things forward. Now, again, whenever there is issues like this, there's always a solution. And the solution for me should focus on dialogue. Can we bring these people together in the same room possibly and let them air their grievances and let someone sometimes help them to understand?
Is it not too late to dialogue? They've been dialoguing for a while.
It's never too late. That's the only way we can get solution. That's the only way we can get solution. And so that is one area that we haven't been able to effectively dialogue and get a concrete solution. The president tried it. It didn't work. Certain individuals remotely have done their best. It's not working. But guess what? I believe that the person who have the ace to solve this problem is still the president. He's the president and commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, president over all states of the Federation. And their concept, the idea that it doesn't matter, it's a destructive path to take.
Well, I mean, there's going to be people who would argue that, calling for dialogue, almost gives some credibility to the claims of both sides. Nyesom Wike, of course, the role that he has played in the politics and the disruptions that we've seen in Rivers State in the last, year plus. Anybody can decide to do that, and, take advantage of the democracy and, disrespect the people, disrespect the state, disrespect the, the governance of the state, simply because he has the right to. And then at the end, we'll say, oh, you guys should dialogue. But I mean, he has disrespected the democracy of Rivers State long enough. But the pendulum seems to be swinging towards Sim Fubara with regard sympathy for his cause, and many people seem to be sympathetic, with his points. Do you think his hands are clean? Do you think he simply, has just simply been that innocent sitting duck, who's been bullied by this big wolf in the FCT, and everyone should just simply have pity for Sim Fubara?
I want to commend you in the sense that you have spoken like a true journalist who sees issues the way it should be seen, and that's very commendable. However, whenever two people, and my darling sister, that doesn't mean you're equally commendable. Yeah, you're equally commendable. But let's put things in perspective. Whenever two people have problems, whenever there's a problem, maybe husband and wife, the problem is never one-sided. It's always this person must have done something wrong, that person must have done something wrong. But oftentimes, the person who is objective, the person who is able to stir not sympathy, but the empathy of the people, tend to be on the winning side. And that's what is happening to my good friend Fubara. Again, I've had audience with Fubara. The only time I had audience with Wike was when he was the Minister for the State for Education. I tend to have a little bit knowledge of the two individuals and their temperaments, and sometimes their ambition, Fubara is a very quiet, very objective, very empathic individual. I can tell you for free, that guy is not power drunk. If it's said today that, look, walk away from this office, he will. I can tell you one thing that a lot of people don't. There was a time that he's been forced to almost resignation, and he walked away. So when somebody is not that ambitious, when somebody is given to the people, when somebody is God-fearing, it tends to be on the winning side. When an individual is one that is fighting not for victory, but from victory, he tends to get the support of the people. When also you're not showing the sign of being destructive and disruptive of the system, you tend to be on the winning side. I'll give you another instance, and this is my advocacy, or whatever you will call it, appeal to the FCT minister. Every leader leads and leaves a legacy. Those who lead well want to maintain their legacy. But when you lead and you are bent on destroying your own legacy, that's a self-destruct. And I think this is what is playing out. And as I look into this camera, I speak to anyone, including the FCT minister. You have left a legacy. Don't contribute or allow anybody to contribute to destroying that legacy. And I think that's a message that should resonate not only in his face, but in his heart.
All right, we're going to move to other, conversations across the country. I think Olive, would like to chip in next. But I just wanted to quickly mention, when you say a person who has not contributed to disruptions or destructions, you would always seemingly win. In 2023, the Rivers State House of Assembly complex was demolished, allegedly to stop the sitting of House of Assembly members who maybe plan to impeach the governor then. In a sane society, that should have been properly investigated. That maybe should be an impeachable offense, against sinful behavior. So again, this is the reason I was pointing out that he may not necessarily be as innocent, as he seems to be portrayed in the whole conversations, in River State. But people would argue that he's fighting for his life. And when you fight with someone who's playing dirty, you have to fight dirty as well. Olive?
Yeah.
I think I want to say that it's very condemnable what happened, but also any ideology around who did that, there is no concrete evidence that he either remotely or overtly was responsible for what happened. Just like what happened a few days ago, the burning down of all the secretariats of the local government. We've not been able to pin it to any individual, even though I have personally called for the questioning of all the ex-chairmen of those local government secretariats that have been born. So, I mean, anybody and everybody can also ask for the government of the day in Rivers State to be questioned about, yes, the destruction of the State House of Assembly. Like I said, it is absolutely condemnable. Anyone that destroy public properties built by the taxpayers' money of that state, that person is not fit for an office.
Okay, I mean, I think as we wrap up the conversation on River State before we move to Edo State, I think another concern that we've heard Nigerians express would be the fact that, yes, Siminalayi Fubara often would say, and his supporters would say that what he's doing is to dismantle a system that should not be applauded by our democracy, a system that, encourages godfatherism. But the fear is, if he does come out on the winning side, does he then become the monster that he conquered? Because if you recall, Nyesom Wike also had to fight out to be able to stand and to be able to actually rule independently, lead River State independently. So I think the fear would be that, does he then become the monster that he conquered if he comes out of this? Do you have those similar concerns as well?
Well, the point is, smart people learn from history. If he is not able to learn from history of the very thing that he's fighting, and he will turn around, become the promoter of the same evil that he's fighting against, then history will not be kind to him. The River State is becoming very difficult for any individual. What we're doing right now is a struggle to rescue the soul of River State. And it's going to be very difficult in the future for one man to rise up and set the state is in his pocket. It's going to be difficult. The so-called structure has ruptured, it's been totally destroyed, because it's no longer business as usual. Whether anybody likes it or not, you can't lay hold on the power block of the state and arrogate it to yourself. Power is sweet, but when you acquire it from the back door, it will break you. I mean, I don't want to sell philosophy. It's the philosophy of force and choice. Yeah. When you force people to follow you, it will break you. But when people follow you by choice, it empowers you.
You've said that power is sweet, but when you take it through the back door, it would destroy
it. It will work against
you.
Or
it will work against you. Another person who's been accused of taking power through the back door is the governor-elect of Edo State. And we've seen through the elections in Edo State, the APC has emerged the winner of the elections based on the results, but the PDP firmly believes that they won the results, they won the elections, and that a lot of backdoor happenings happened to ensure that the APC came out on top. They've also said that the APC is frustrating their efforts at ensuring that they file a successful appeal in the court. So I want you to give us your thoughts on the Edo State elections, where they've come from and where they are now.
Well, I think I want to speak as one who had a first-hand experience. I was in Delta. I was there to monitor the inclusivity of the electoral process. But at the same time, I was able to spread my tentacle and, glean from all that happened. I'll give it to you in three perspectives. Number one is pre-election, the preparations, the campaigning, the three major candidates and how they conducted themselves and all that. Godwin Obaseki is someone that I respect, but I think he tried to, if I use the word, use over smartness. There are things that he would have fixed, and I think one of them was his issues with the Oba, the traditional institution. Where I come from, you don't play with that. It can work against you because they are the leaders of the grassroots. When you are when somebody raises an alarm that this is the enemy of the Oba, you've lost it completely. But again, they were too intelligent driven and philosophical and believed in all that they have, and all that. And again, political enemies too. There were too many political enemies against them, and so it didn't work out. Then during the election, I can only describe what I saw with this statement. It was a case of the highest rigor and the highest bidder. Both APC, PDP, both of them rigged. Both of them tried to buy votes. It's just that there were presence of Abuja-based boys who, in the cost, and of course, don't take away the experience of Philip. All of that played out against the sitting governor. There were too many loopholes that they couldn't block that worked against them. I can only describe that election as one of the worst off-cycle elections in the history of this country.
Yeah, of course, doesn't create any trust, moving into 2027, because, in the next 1 year, that's going to be major of the conversation we're going to be having. 2027 elections, governance will, the president is currently in France. He first of all was in the UK on holiday vacation, and then he's reported that he's moving to France from there. Do you think that Nigeria is currently being properly managed under the current administration?
Well, if I run a company, or like I run an organization, no matter how much I do, if the people that are following me are impoverished, if meeting them the time that I met them has taken them much backward than when I met them, then it can be said that I'm not leading well. The problem with this administration is their inability to rejig the economy of the country, and maybe their refusal to own up the fact that they inherited an economy that was in comatose. Maybe because they are all APC, so they don't want to own up that. However, there's been policy somersault, trial and error. They have not been able to articulate, frankly speaking, a workable system. Maybe because of all the trial and error policies that have not effectively yield the expected result. you know. And so no matter what they try to do, let them go back and look at the people, you know. Are they better off compared to where they are coming from? And I don't think so. There's hunger in the land. You know, people are struggling to make ends meet. And the more we continue in this direction, the more discontent the people will be, and it's not good for the current administration. I think there's a need to, every leader, when you make a decision, you know, it's important for you to look at your decision and make a detour. If you know that it's not moving in the direction of the expected result. There's a saying that it's only a madman that throws stone, puts his head under the stone, and think he won't break his head.
So you don't agree with the temporary pain, things will get better in a bit narrative?
The temporary pain is becoming too painful than that most people in it, including me, don't know when we are going to come out of the pain. Are we going to go from pain to complete, painful, irresistible stoicism, you know, which is a form of a Chinese system where he believes that suffering, he's used to suffering, so he's going to stay with that, you know. So we are moving to that mood where we become stoic. You know, you don't know when you're going to get out of it, but you just keep going. But there's a way around it. The way around it is, one, put the right people in the room, empower them to make decisions. And when it's not working, reverse it. And I used that for 20 years of leading my organization, you know. And of course, I also know that because the first day you assume leadership is that very day you plan your exit.
Right.
So I am at the point where I'm going through my exit strategy, where I will have to bring in younger people to assume leadership position, yes, so that the organization can move forward. But we started well, and we started with just one person following me, and today I have 28 staff, and
that's growth.
We're not doing that bad.
And that's that's how Nigerians want to feel like we started here, and years later, this is where we are a lot better. Unfortunately, like you've expressed, that's not the sentiment that Nigerians have expressed. Yesterday, they told us in another 10, 15 years, we'll start to see the change that we want. But the question is, do Nigerians have 10, 15 years left in them? Can they wait?
Well, how many people will be alive in 10, 15 years? If we keep going the way we are going, it's going to spell doom. I'm not a prophet of doom, but I've lived long enough to know there are certain things you don't do,
right,
to push the people to the edge.
Yep. Jake, it's a long conversation, but we unfortunately have to wrap up now. Jake Epelle, thank you so much. Founder of the All Rights Foundation. We wish you all the best.
Africa.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you. It's encouraging to know the young people like you have a very objective thinking, and that's what journalism is all about. Don't practice gutter journalism.
Thank you very much for the kind words. Thank you for your encouragement. All right. This is still Breakfast Central. We'll go on a very quick break. When we come back, we have more conversations this morning. Do stay with us. And remember, we're broadcasting live from the Nigerian Economic Summit.
Welcome back. It's the Lagos studio now, and we're going to be linking with our host in Abuja, and that's by name of Johansson, who is standing by at the NESG, the complex where it's happening. So let's move over to Joe now and find out the details of this morning and how everything's going. Joe, good morning to you.
Good morning. morning to you again. Once again, Mazino Epelle. Well, today I can rightly tell you that the stage is equally set. Right behind me is the stage. That's where we had the Vice President, His Excellency Kashim Shettima, who spoke yesterday, and part of the speech that he made has indeed generated a lot of conversations online, especially looking at the case of insecurity mentioned. He also talked about being a realist and went ahead to mention the need for collaboration and need for every single thing to be done to ensure that Nigeria's economy bounces back. Now, aside from that, we also had the Minister of Budget, who equally was on that stage. I'm talking about Abubakar Bagudu. He also spoke deeply about how the economy is a main focus, especially for the renewed hope agenda. Now, that's not all. That stage also had fantastic speakers who were able to grace it, and they spoke deeply and passionately about how Nigeria's economy can indeed bounce back. But today, let me give you a little snippet of what to expect. I do have the schedule with me here handy, and I'm going to tell you quickly that we're expecting the Honorable Minister of Finance and, of course, the coordinating Minister for the Economy of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the one known as Mr. Olawale Edu. He's supposed to be here today, and he would be on that stage, most importantly, answering questions that would come from other persons who would be raising their hands eagerly to ask questions from the floor. Now, not just that, we'll also be expecting David Ndi. He's also going to be here as well. He's the Chair Presidential Council of the Economic, not forgetting Economic Advisors, the Republic of Kenya. Now, it baffles me to note that we do have a cross-section of speakers who would be coming from other African countries, especially in East Africa. Don't forget that Kenya is equally battling its own flaws, trying to manage its economy. We do recall what happened that sparked a lot of protests, where the president himself had to ensure that that particular tax law that was to be passed had to be redrawn. And because of that, we did see how the deputy himself was also faced with his own challenges. Of course, talking about one who is struggling, but then again, it will be nice to have them here to speak on the effects, the multiple effects that Africa is indeed going through. So you can see it's not just Nigeria that's struggling, but of course, we know economically we do have an upper hand if only we get things right. And that's the reason why the Nigerian Economic Summit will indeed pave the course and pave the way forward like they've been doing for the past 30 years. Do not forget as well that it's the 30th edition of the NES, and that's why we're here. Now, let me also whet your taste buds a bit and let you know that you would also be having Edward Brown. He's the Senior Director of Research Policy and Programs, African Center for Economic Transformation. He's going to be here. And you might wonder, what would they be talking about? Well, it's all about fiscal reforms for a more secure future. We're talking about a future where Nigerians would indeed hold on to and say it will and will happen. Will it happen? Well, you would not want to miss this panel session, which consists of very, very key players who would be talking. I'm also going to let you in on another very interesting panel session. The one that I'm also very interested in. It's got to do with fueling growth, the future of oil and gas. Mazino, it will interest you to note that this particular conversation would get a lot of Nigerians, especially myself, yourself, everyone talking, because we would like to listen to what the panelists have in store and what they're going to say. Now we know what the price of fuel says. We know the difference between what the NNPCL had said and, of course, what the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria had said. And recently, just yesterday, news broke that if only the Independent Petroleum Marketers Association are allowed to align properly and work directly with the Dangote refinery, they would be able to bring down the price of premium motor spirit, which is petrol, down to 400 naira per litre. That was one news that indeed actually came forth, especially on the social media space and also online. So we're hopeful that things will indeed change. But I can tell you this for free, Mazino, and of course to all our viewers. Live at the NES 30, that's where everything will take place at the backstage, and we are indeed ready. It's day 2, and we are fully prepared to bring to you every single detail live from the floor here in the Federal Capital Territory in Abuja. It's back to you, Mazina.
Jonathan Hansen, good to see that you have everything all tied up in a knot and we're ready to receive all the information that will be coming straight from Abuja. Thank you very much. Now, we're going to go back to our hosts, Olive and Osarge in Abuja, and I hear there's another conversation right in the wings. Let's get that one from the two hosts. Thank you very much.
Mazino, and of course, great analysis there by Joe Hansen, of course, stating what is still to come today at the Nigerian Economic Summit. Everyone's still excited. The hall is getting filled up with delegates and, of course, stakeholders from across Nigeria. But now we're getting into a conversation on the general security outlook across Nigeria. A police station was raised by youths in Edo State. There's still, of course, calls for a sit-at-home, and, of course, the Anambra State governor asking residents to come out on Mondays and abandon the sit-at-home order that has been going on in the state for quite a number of years now. We're joined this morning by the national president of Nigerian Youth Organization, Comrade Duke Alamboye. Good morning and thanks for joining us.
Good morning, my brother with the best voice. It was actually a very good voice.
Great to have you join us here.
I promise you're following me to my choir.
I will. Absolutely will. So let's get your general view. The vice president, while he was here yesterday, was seemingly telling people to stop being so or taking advantage of the current economic challenges in Nigeria to paint the country bad and weaponizing the economic situation. But one of the things that he mentioned that a lot of people heard was comparing the crime rate, the murder rate in Chicago, United States, to Nigeria. Basically saying that it's not so bad in Nigeria compared to it over there. What is your analysis on how well we've fared with security in the last 16 months?
Okay, let me first of all congratulate the organizers of this, the Economic Summit, and I'm very proud of basically the Ministry of Budget. These are programs that Nigerians want to see. When we yearn for good governance, these are things we mean to be happening. So we'll know the mindset of government and know the direction of government through programs like this. So I also want to thank the Vice President for deeming it fit to attending, not just sending the representation. He came himself and had made, fatherly statements and leadership statements. And the main issue is putting these statements into practice. Yes. It's not just by saying, I don't want to agree to that comparison he made. There are two different countries and the two different stages in terms of development. We are struggling at a nation that is struggling to develop to be like the country is comparing Nigeria to. But be it as it may, I want to also give credence to the present administration, linking it strictly to the security agencies for the swift and dedicated job they've been doing. Don't forget, the discussion is apt. I did the National Security Summit this year, February, where all service chiefs, in partnership with the Chief of Defense Staff, that is General Musa, Christopher Musa. So I know the in-depthness of what they feel about insecurity in the north, in the south, and wherever you can think about in the country, and their commitment and dedication. However, the political undertone has always still been the problem. The ability to allow people do their job when it comes to insecurity. Insecurity is a cankerworm to the economy, which is the basis of our discussion. So we're relating insecurity to economic growth and development. So it's one basic problem. And of course, recognizing that in Nigeria is very key. We can see we have peculiarities of insecurities in several areas or region. Yes. The northern region is of banditry and kidnapping. If you come to the southern part of Nigeria, you're talking about stay at home, bullies and all of that. If you go far into the south region, oil theft and vandalization of government property and all of that. So it is a problem. But I think the present government have really shown concern and proactive touches on the issues that borders insecurity. Why I'm saying that is because once incidents happen, we see the response. Prior to other government, I won't want to mention them, that would want to even after a week or two respond to all of that. So
are you talking In terms of their words, their body language, or are you talking of in terms of, them taking decisive steps in
Yes,
that action?
all
If you can
inclusive.
share
All
examples,
what you
maybe.
said is inclusive. Reacting to it, even acknowledging it, it takes time. So, but this government now, but once something happens, the government, as the populace is picking it up, the government are also picking it up, and then you see them, discharging responsibilities on who to handle what situation. That's what I mean. But we will not also take it away that all has not been done. All has not been done. Recently, in the southeast, the lock-up, what they call it, sit-at-home order is causing lots of. Yes, I agree with Nnamdi Kanu. The last time he came to court, he has equivocally disassociated himself from that activities, and people using his trial or his case to perpetrate some menial and major conflict in the zone. He disassociated himself from that. It has nothing to do with his trial. Yes, we agree that the Easterners are a little bit urging governments or the system to release him using political solutions or the real trial. They want him to be pardoned. They want him to be granted bail and all of that. We agree there are some people that are sincerely, including leaders, sincerely pursuing that cause. While it is a common phenomenon in our country, people want to begin to use that as a yardstick to perpetrating other vices that are uncalled for. I'm one person that has always kicked against protests. Not as if the yearnings or the objectives of protests is not genuine. But my fear has always been when genuine people come out to do that, there are other people that want to use it to gain political points, other people that want to use it to gain their personal points, destructions, looting, killings, and all of that. So this is where we are, and I think more needs still need to be done in terms of insecurity in our nation.
I'll particularly come to the states in a moment, but I want to talk about where we are. You've talked about how the current administration is doing a lot of work in terms of being able to respond speedily. A tactic that we've seen gain notorious publicity in the past year or two, maybe not just the past year or two, but more recently has been kidnapping. So bad that people don't even want to travel anymore because you're thinking, if I can't afford money to fly, I would rather not go by road. You heard of the bus where all of them were kidnapped a few days ago, and only the driver was able to escape or was released. So how has kidnapping become a thriving business in the past year or two? And what really would you say what would you say your analysis is on how the administration is handling it, especially bearing in mind that there's a law against paying of ransom? But yet you can't deny the fact that families are still paying ransom to get their loved ones. If you ask people who are family members that have been kidnapped, they'll tell you the reality of what they experienced. That sometimes some of them will say that law enforcement agents will say to them, better go and pay for your kidnapping. And that's something that is illegal. It's against the law. But if you're looking at the reality and the practicality of what insecurity has caused in Nigeria, that is a reality that we see. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yes, thank you very much. Kidnapping, unfortunately, is a common one across board. I agree with you totally. And I also want to observe that it is domesticated now. What I mean by that is that people now begin to feel that it's an easy way to making money. Of course, you can just come out to a busy or less busy street, kidnap one or two persons. This time around, in those days, it used to be prominent and rich people, but now you can kidnap anybody. And then before you know, 2-3 days, you're making 1,500,000 and all of that. So the question we're going to ask ourselves, who are the aiders? Who are the aiders to kidnapping? People are aiding kidnapping. Now, let me take, for instance, the banks. They are going to be critical stakeholders in helping restricting or eradicating banditry and kidnapping to some extent. Monies that are ransom that are being paid goes through the bank system. Ransom that are to be paid comes from the banking system. So there are also laws that guide against excessive withdrawal. I was in the cybercrime summit just 2 weeks ago, where these things were discussed deliberately. The banks are not helping even cybercrime, crime in the society. they are not reporting illegal activities in their space. Maybe in not to contradict also data protection laws, but whatever way you want to see it, these are things that must be reported for us to checkmate kidnapping and what they call banditry in those areas. Now, secondly, survival. In as much as we are condemning it, the country economy is snowdiving. Petty businesses are not striving. People are not even given opportunity to even have. I'm not even going to talk about employment opportunity. I don't want to go there. Even personal growth, self-employment. People cannot go to farm. So you see, in a community where you have a community populated by youths predominantly, and they are all dormant, they will resort to being caged or encouraged by the few that are indulging in this. And of course, you're going to see the differences. Let me give you an instance. I traveled to Rivers State, somewhere in Rivers State, and I observed that, do you know that the criminals that are boarding in the community are the people providing security, providing food, providing, daily needs for the community. So in that regard, are you going to allow, or is the king or the paramount ruler going to report to government? So confidence is the third issue. People have lost confidence in even reporting or addressing issues when they see these things around them, because these people, if you look at the weapons they use, if you look at the way they organize themselves to kidnap and do all of this, you will know that it is not an easy job.
So why would people have lost confidence? Because, is it the confidence in the fact that...
Confidence in governments. Not, when I say confidence in government here, we're not talking about federal government here. Recall, it is domesticated now. You see people from their community also kidnap community members. You see people from a nearby community come out to an express to do kidnapping and go back within their community area, a secluded place to keep their victims and demand for ransom. It is no more you kidnap people from there, take them to, it is just domesticated now. Yeah. So the local governments in our country economy is down. There are no local businesses, there are no encouragements. So people are resorting to survival, and it has become the easiest means of making quick money.
It's pretty easy.
Unfortunately,
it's pretty easy. As an economy depreciates, it's expected that crime levels would rise. So people are more desperate. The reason you even find societies, it's even in the southeast, where people know that this is kidnappers' camp. People know where they are.
Yes, I agree.
In the northeast and in many parts of northern Nigeria, Middle Belt, people know where these people are. It paints a picture of where we are as a country. And for, like you mentioned, it's domesticated.
Yeah.
It really just paints a picture of where we are mentally, even as a country, that we even know where these people are, but even the police will tell you that they know, but I mean, it's not a major problem. It shows you where we are as a country. But I want to ask, would anybody be able to give the current administration a pass mark with regards to tackling security simply by their body language? Because there's certain things that I've always stated. People have called for state police as a way to reduce insecurity challenges Nigeria faces. People have called for better handling of our borders to reduce the proliferation of arms into Nigeria. People have also called for better investment into investigating financial dealings. You see bandits on TikTok, on social media, they don't even hide. They're showing their faces. They're doing giveaways on social media. It's true. And so, would you give them a pass mark if you've not necessarily seen policy changes? Because if you need to change certain policies, you need to say, okay, we're going to be stricter on our borders. We're going to be stricter with financial dealings. There's certain things that you will see and say, okay, this people know what they're doing.
Yes, I think the cause for fighting for good governance had also made us add lots of engagement. Let me take you back to when we had engagement with the National Assembly, that's the House of Representatives, the leadership of the House of Representatives, I think early this year, so some months ago too. This is one of the issues that we also tracked, policies But we are in a country where the policies are also there. Maybe archaic or functional, but the ability to execute those policies are the issues. So I want to believe that the policies are not even the problem. The problem is executing, the will to execute those policies and drive victims to the proper records as constituted by our constitution. That is where the problem is. What I'm trying to give, what I will give the government a pass mark is looking from where we are coming from, 8 years back to where we are coming from now. They've done their best to make sure it is no more going to the center cities. We've been in this town where a bomb exploded in Abuja, close to very important places and all of that. We've seen how it's eroded the nation, banditry here, kidnapping here, and all of that. So it has been in a quiet manner. So people, the perpetrators also find time to do it. They are cautious of the mechanisms on the ground now. So that is the kudos I'm giving them. But be it as it may, a lot need to be done. Orientation. I think orientation is the key. I've sounded this thing so many times. We are not orienting them. When the program happened in Anambra, everybody's attention is in Anambra. Social media, main media, youths, women, men, government security agencies, everybody's attention is in Anambra. And once that is solved, nobody takes care of what are the causes, what are the solutions given, what are the ways forward to sustain that not happening again in even any part of the country. This is where the problem lies. So the national resident agencies, the military need to do lots of orientations, taking this call, telling people that, look, if you do this, kidnapping is bad, and then adopting the non-kinetic measures.
Yeah,
you must not just necessarily speak to the people bringing them out. It's like amnesty. You must bring them out and bringing them to, even if it's a less surviving venture, people should begin to embrace all of that. One tool I used to emphasize on, please, where is the presidential cup in this country? Where are the governorship cup? These are games that, the national games, these are things that kept Nigerian youths busy in a fiscal year, and the economy within that period will be well pronounced. People will be busy selling things. People will travel from Enugu to the northern state to go and play football.
Unfortunately, they travel now. They have to budget money.
We will have to start those things. When we start those things, it will also bring those boys out.
If we start those things,
yes.
You know, some would argue that we start those things and the roads are not yet safe. We are putting the horse before the carts before the horse.
I can bet you that we faced a kidnap situation. I was in the vehicle. We were 8 guys in the vehicle, a Sienna vehicle, and someone just came out from the distance with a gun. Yes, it was with a gun, but we interacted with him because we were more. It's our determination. I don't think if the country is busy today now doing presidential corps, and thousands of youths are traveling from one place to the other as busy. Look, they don't come to busy roads.
Nobody wants, to try your experiment. Nobody wants to kidnap. The fabric of a nation.
I'm saying is that it may not, it has to see. All security agencies, of course, will be traveling with football players and their supporters and all of that. Well, those areas that are prone to kidnapping, so in a fiscal year, when that game's in 6 months, Nigerians youth are busy.
Comrade Duke, this your theory is subject to testing, but I don't know who is going to be willing to test. Maybe we should ask our audience. If you're willing to explore, or test, Comrade Duke.
What I'm emphasizing here is non-kinetic measures must be put in place to also
we have to have you again, so, and maybe this time around we'll have a conversation from both sides of the divide. For those who agree with yours and those who disagree, we'll see what the approach is. But thank you so much for joining us, Comrade Duke Alambwe. We'll go to a very quick break. When we come back, we have more to come this morning. Stay with us on Breakfast Central.
Welcome back inside the Lagos studios here as we take the front pages this morning. And inside of the studio with me, I have Mr. Ikechukwu Ekechukwu, publisher Niche newspaper. You're welcome, sir. Good to have you here with us.
Good morning.
Yeah, good to see you not on a weekend. Mr. Ekechukwu, we're going to go into the papers now. Let's take a look at some of the headlines, and then, of course, we're going to be discussing some of these as we go. So first off, I think we have the Punch newspaper for this morning, and front and center we have these headlines here. PDP factional chairman clash As governors fail to resolve crisis, Damagu camp threatens to arrest Mohammed-led National Exco. And in Lagos, the photo story here, Lagos seals distressed structure as two-story building collapse. That one made plenty of rounds inside of social media yesterday as there was a live video of the building as it collapsed. Thankfully, they say nobody or no lives were lost. Under that one, heroic Eagles returned home after 17 hours Libyan ordeal. FG protests officially, summons envoy. CAF promises probe. We'll see an iteration of that in our other subsequent papers. And at the top for the Punch, FG plans 25% tax on Nigerians earning above 100 million naira. That on page 24. And Nigeria lost $15 billion to fuel subsidy, forex round-tripping, says the World Bank. And finally, import duty. FG grants private jet owners 30-day extension. Mr. Ekechukwu, I'm sure you know the story we're going to be coming to for the Punch newspaper this morning, and that's a PDP fractional chairman clash as governors failed to resolve crisis. It seems to be a situation of Yayari versus Damagu, but then again, when you look deeper, it's actually Wike versus Atiku. First off, your first take on the issue here with the PDP as they become factioned, let's put it that way.
Well, the issue of the PDP crisis, like you pointed out, it goes beyond Yayari Mohammed and Omar Damagu. They're only pawns on the chessboard. The real dramatis personae in the PDP crisis are Nyesom Wike, the Federal Capital Territory Minister, and former Vice President Atiku Abubakar. And don't forget, this thing started since last year, the presidential election last year, where Atiku unfortunately breached what ought to be a path that the presidency should be rotated between the North and the South. And Muhammad Buhari, about to complete his 8 years, the presidency ought to have come back to the South, like he did when Olusegun Obasanjo completed his 8 years. Mm-hmm. But somehow, Atiku grabbed the ticket of the PDP. Now, Wike, in fighting back, was, on the face value, you could say that he was fighting back based on principles, but it was not, because Wike had also lobbied to be given the vice presidential ticket under Atiku. Had Atiku agreed, I'm not too sure we'll be seeing all these crises we are seeing in PDP today, but Atiku didn't. Instead went for the former governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa. Mm-hmm. That is where that problem is. Now, it has become an ego war. Wike has aligned with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC. And like I continue saying on this stage, the only value Wike brings to Tinubu's governance table is being used as an instrument to hold down the PDP, so as to ensure that Tinubu's 2027 re-election becomes a fait accompli. That is the crisis that is holding the PDP down. And of course, the APC, led by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, is doing a yeoman's job in ensuring that this crisis does not end. They are using the courts, they are using the security agents to do this thing. The secretary of the PDP, Samuel Anyanwu, Senator Samuel Anyanwu, don't forget, last year contested the governorship of Imo State. Yeah. Under PDP's constitution, a member of the National Working Committee who wants to contest election, you ought to resign your position to go and contest election, because you can't be holding down such an important office of the secretary of the PDP, and then running as a governorship candidate in a state. But they went to court. You know, and that is where the judiciary, the role they are playing, I have said it for the 18th time, that if there is any institution that will likely bring down this democracy, it is the judiciary. And that is very, very unfortunate, because the judiciary ought to be the institution that should strengthen our democracy. So I don't see how this crisis will end, because going back to what is happening now, last week there was a factionalization, a group led by the secretary, Ologuagba, Debo, rose against the Damagu-led NWC and suspended Damagu and one other person. Now, those ones rallied around and also suspended Debo and the legal advisor. So it has become a ding-dong affair. Of course, the Wike camp went to court, as usual, to get a court order.
Before we run out of time, I want us to look and examine the Wike influence, whether in the APC or the PDP. If he, like you have just said, it seems to be an instrument to destabilize the PDP, then what's the PDP doing? Because if you work for the PDP, and if what you're saying is correct, you're working to destabilize it, it would seem that his powers are so big that no one wants to do anything about it. But why is he still being led to continue with what seems to be destruction of his own party, eating it like a yogurt from the inside, and then his influence is still in the state where he was as a governor? Why is the PDP not doing anything in your context of this?
But I just said so now, the courts. They are using the courts. Any move made by the article fashion of the PDP, they will go to court and they will stall it. So what do you do? What do you do? And you have, look, remove Wike today as Minister of Federal Capital Territory and all this gra-gra will stop. It's as simple as that. If Wike does not have the backing of Mr. President, all this nonsense will stop. So it is no rocket science. If you ask me, there is not much that the PDP can do to Wike, as long as he occupies the position he occupies, and as long as there are judges that are willing to give judgments, even in the middle of the night, to accommodate the interests of Nyesom Wike. So it is...
So you're talking about the court system that is in itself biased. That's what you're saying.
Not only biased, a judiciary that has become literally the nemesis of Nigeria's democracy. And I'm saying this with all sense of responsibility. For instance, look at the just concluded local government election in Rivers State, where a judge, a Nigerian judge, restrained the police from carrying out their statutory duties of protection of lives and duties. Can you beat that? A Nigerian judge, the judiciary, stopping the police from providing security. It doesn't make sense.
It's a very interesting picture you paint here, with the judiciary being used as a tool by a specific political group. Well, we wait to see exactly how this is going to turn out, especially come the elections. Hopefully that Nigerians will be more aware. But let's move on to our next paper this morning. And our next paper is the Punch newspaper. Or rather, let's see. Yes, The Guardian. My apologies, The Guardian newspaper. And for The Guardian, the big headline here is from sports. Football foul play is what they call it. Nigeria, CAF go head-to-head over Super Eagles ordeal in Libya. That on page 6. Very interesting read. You can see the pictures of the Eagles on there. And right after, how Nigeria others can reduce $4 billion regional cybercrime crime losses. States in darkness as national grid collapses again. And Edo PDP files petition against results, trades words with APC over IREV manipulation, and why Tinubu's economic forum should last 15 more years by World Bank. We saw that yesterday at the where the I think World Bank boss was talking about the fact that we had to wait 15 years. My question is, how old would you be in 15 years? Customs extend deadline for private aircraft imports, duty verification and robotics, makeup, beekeeping, others make new basic school curriculum. I hope we can touch on that. Nigeria's crude production drops to 1.32 million barrels per day in September, says OPEC. Let's do sports now, Ekechukwu, if you do not mind. Nigerians landed, the football team landed in Libya, but not the destination they were expecting. And if you look at their argument, it makes proper sense, because they said, for security reasons, we can't travel 150 miles in a country we do not know that is known for its disruption when it comes to security. And this caused them to forfeit the game. This is causing both parties, whether the Libyan or the Nigerian, to say they're going to go to court. The Libyans are saying. But I don't know what to take or what to say of this situation for Nigeria when it comes to our sports, whether we're paying, whether we're being, what's the word, not respected as a nation, if our sports has become that little a thing for people to disregard us as a nation.
You may be right in your assertion, but I think that the decision the NEFF took to bring back our boys is the best decision perhaps that has been taken by this government so far in the last 16 months. I don't know if you read what Dr. Olajire wrote, the 20, in fact, it is a graphic detail of what transpired right from the time the Super Eagles team left Akwa Ibom State, flew to Kano to refuel and complete the necessary logistics before flying down to Libya. They were almost about landing at the Benghazi airport when the pilot was instructed by the control tower to go to Al-Abrak airport. In fact, he said that the pilot complained that he didn't have enough fuel, and the people simply ignored them. They landed at the airport and they were subjected to very inhumane treatment for more than 13 hours. And this was a game that
was to take place the very next day.
To take place on Tuesday, the very next day. Now, these guys were disoriented, they were dehumanized, and there was, how on earth can you go into a field? What are you going to play? Who are you? What? Because...
So who's to take that fall, the Nigerian side or the Libyan side? Now, that's the question.
The Libyan side, of course.
But then the Nigerian side, you would imagine, or you would think that perhaps maybe better logistics was to be put in place and interaction with the Libyan side regarding how our boys are to be treated. We can't come there 13 or how many hours just before a game and then be expected to go through such an ordeal. Why wasn't there enough logistics put in place from before that, insisted upon by the Nigerian side?
No, there was. There was. Don't forget, they were supposed to land in Benghazi.
Yes.
And that was where, ordinarily, the protocol of football it should be that the host country will take care. Because these guys are more like ambassadors of their own countries now coming into your place. Decency demands that you should provide the logistics, the bus, and everything take them to their hotels, but you didn't do that. You diverted them to an airport that is 3 hours back to Benghazi. And don't forget that Libya is a country that is in very serious crisis. As we speak, there are two governments. The one recognized by the UN that runs Tripoli, and the one that is run by a rebel leader in this same Benghazi. And that's the place you want people to travel for good 3 hours. And for the people that have also been subjected to this kind of treatment, imagine if they go into the field and defeat the Libyans. Who can guarantee their safety? No food. They were not even allowed to go out of the airport to make, no. I think FIFA, CAF, Confederation of African Football, must treat this as a very serious case. Otherwise, it will ruin African football. I think even FIFA should be interested in what happened to Nigerians in Libya.
But how much responsibility lies on the NFF itself regarding the situation? How much should they press? Will they press? Have they been known to press for these kinds of issues, even if they are scarce and far in between? But what action or what responsibility lies with them?
I think they're so far so good. They have done all
that's
they could.
Necessary.
They escalated the issues. The Minister of Sports, John Eno, also took it up, escalated it, involved the Minister of Foreign Affairs, involved the National Security Advisor. Yesterday, the Libyan charge d'affaires in Nigeria was summoned. Of course, Libya does not have a full-blown embassy in Nigeria. They have a charge d'affaires who was summoned. And diplomatically, people are following and doing what they ought to do. Of course, the boys are back, landed in Kano yesterday. So, and CAF is already investigating what transpired in Libya.
Now, Ekechukwu, we are out of time, unfortunately. We have to get back to our Abuja studios where we have Olive and Osarage who are standing by to give us more information about everything that's happening at the NESG. There was a headline I really wanted us to touch on when it comes to the Nigerian grid collapsing again for the 5th time, but I bet we'll save that for later. We'll survive it, I guess.
Tell Olive and Osa to ask people at the NESG, this is the 227th time that the national grid is collapsing in the last 14 years.
200 and what?
27.
All right, okay, 27th.
So how can Nigeria move forward?
Thank you very much.
When we have this issue.
Yeah. Tell me what we're going to do right now as we head on to Abuja. I'm hoping that Osarage and Olive heard that question from Ekechukwu. Hopefully you guys heard it. This is the 227th time the grid has fallen, has broken down in, well, so many years. What resolve? Who's going to answer these questions at the NESG? Olive, Osarage, any answers from you guys?
Yes, we definitely did. And it's a question that I also asked, earlier, just before we started the show. How do we move forward and, and grow Nigeria's economy when we just last night, heard about the national grid collapsing once again. But thanks to Ekechukwu Amechi for raising that question. It's probably what we'll start our next conversation with this morning. Thanks also to Mazino Appeal. We're joined now at the National Economic Summit by Dr. Chijioke Ekechukwu, who's the Vice President, Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you very much for joining us. So it's only fair that we start the conversation with that question. The national grid once again collapsed yesterday. How are we having conversations in Nigeria about growing the economy, diversifying the economy, and we still have such, embarrassing power issues?
For many years, for years on ending, we have always talked about the national grid and lack of power in this country. In fact, since I was a child.
Yes.
It is really unfortunate that we still continue to have the same problem year in, year out. It is not as if this country cannot provide solution to this. In fact, there was a discussion we had somewhere some years back where many energy providers in this country said they had approached the government of Nigeria to give them solutions to the power problems. But before this, the discussions will end, some other people will just come and discourage that effort. They took the same kind of proposal to some other countries in Africa. They ran with it. And today, those guys have enough energy to sustain their country. So I think it's beyond having to know what we need to do. People have come up with the issues of clustering our energy provision. Let Abuja have its own energy. Let Jakarta have its own, and things like that. That also has now worked because I think, people have said a lot of things about the cabal, about the people who benefit from this. So we don't understand why the problem continues to exist, even when we know this is a major bane in the development of our economic pursuits. So there must be, and there should be, a political will to deviate from what we've been doing for many years. We need to deviate from what we've been doing for many years for us to have this kind of solution. And we need to have some think tank sitting with the president, just the president, and if he has the political will. Yeah. But if he doesn't have, we'll continue the normal way. But it's only unfortunate that the grid, what we call the grid, also collapsed. And they picked the right time to even collapse. Yeah. While the summit is going on.
Right. I mean, yesterday, so many points were reached at the summit. Yes, collaboration was a recurring theme in all the conversations and the panel sessions. But in all of this, there's one thing that we talked about when we're starting the show. I would like you to also give your thoughts on that when we're looking at how long it will take Nigeria to get out of where we are. Our leaders, our vice president kept saying, if we stay the course, that it's painful, yes, it's Nigerians are suffering, but if we stay the course, that we will see change. And when the representative from the World Bank was speaking, he did say that if we continue like this in another 10, 15 years, we will see the progress that we're desiring. And of course, we saw the reactions. So let's get your thoughts regarding that. We had a guest earlier and we asked him the same question. He asked who will be remaining in the 10, 15 years? How many Nigerians will be remaining in the next 10, 15 years? So what are your thoughts on that? Do we have 10, 15 years left?
When you expect to see light on the other side of the tunnel, we expect to see a progressive growth. There are countries that are going to shock Africa. One country like that is Burundi. We have interacted with them, with their economic Africa. Well, their vice president came to us at the chambers. Their ambassador came. The kind of programs they reeled out, being the product, the program of the country and their president. Their president sent them out to major countries of the world. Nigeria was one of the countries they visited. And you needed to see the program they reeled out. And those programs were to tell you they are already seeing light at the end of the tunnel. We have not seen any program that will make us see lights. In fact, anything that will even make us see light, they will block it with things that will not allow us to see the light. Yes, today we are seeing some activities of government that are showing that efforts are being made. But you see, the kind of problem we find ourselves, economic situations we find ourselves, require some drastic decisions and drastic fiscal discipline. We have not had that fiscal discipline coming from people that are leaders. We have not had it. Now, Nigerians want to see that you are telling them to adjust their belts. You indeed will adjust totally in all the arms of government. And you can't be adjusting the people and then the people in government are spending money as if we have excess of it when we don't have it. So these are the problems. We are not seeing the steps that will actually show us light at the end of the tunnel. But to the extent they have seen and to the extent their knowledge can take them and to the extent they are agreeing to follow, to that extent, we are seeing some progress. I think that's what we can see. There are various sectors. Now, the way to know whether there is progress is to check sector by sector. What we're doing with health, and what is it with some other countries that we even answer developing nations with? What are we doing with health? What are we doing with the education? What are we doing with power that you just mentioned? What are we doing with corruption? Because if we don't deal with corruption, all these things we're saying will just not happen. So we hope, we are only hoping, just like except we're only hoping that one day we'll get out of this. But what we take on out of this situation, we haven't seen yet. We haven't seen those efforts yet. That's what I can say.
All right, you're the VP Abuja Chamber of Commerce and Industry, so I want us to focus on that. How is commerce in 2024 Nigeria under the new administration's policy? In what ways have they given life in any way to the commerce industry, or have their policies stifled growth in that regard?
You know, when we talk about commerce, it's a gamut of a lot of things. We're talking about both the manufacturing end, the trading, the balance of trade, and what are those things we're trading on. So if we take them one after the other, let us even look at the importation of the things. If we want to say we want to grow importation and have excess of everything we want to import, at what exchange rate are you importing these things? When you import them, what are the activities at the wharf that will make a seamless clearing and a seamless buying and selling? So you already know that answer, that the exchange rate cannot encourage that. When we even say we want to, because usually when there is devaluation of the currency, it promotes export. When we even say we want to promote export, you see that there are no policies to make sure export go seamlessly. You were witness to the fact that one time we said we exported yam out of this country and we were supposed to be the largest yam exporters of Africa, of the world. By the time the yam got to where they were going to, they were already rotten.
Yes.
Between that time and now, I don't think you have heard anything that told us, oh, this is how we're going to correct the mistake we made before. If Ghana is doing it, how come we're not doing it? Ghana exports yam all over the place. If you go anywhere in the world today, it's the Ghana yam you're going to buy. Let us also talk about small and medium enterprises.
Yeah.
What is that thing that is affecting them? One of it is this cost of energy, cost of power. That is not allowing any of them breathe. All of them have been suffocated because of the cost of this. So you see a combination of cost of energy with exchange rates, with insecurity everywhere, and a whole lot of ease of doing business that we don't have. And of course, the kind of taxations, even though they are working on the taxation end, if you combine all these things, it is difficult for any MSME to succeed in Nigeria. And that is why you see some of them start business in few months or maybe few years, they collapse. If you're ever talking about those categories of people, what kinds of funds are they available that are available to them? We mentioned BOI, Bank of Industry, as having single-digit interest rate. What are the conditions to accessing these loans? Apart from BOI, what about the commercial banks? Is there any percentage allocation given to MSMEs to say you must give money to this kind of people at single-digit interest rate? So now that cannot be possible because the MPR of CBN continues to grow higher, and if it does, interest rate of banks will continue to also grow. How would that promote business at every level? So these are the problems. The problems of commerce are too many, and business people in Nigeria prefer to just go to the money market, put their monies there, and watch interest grow without having to go through the many and myriad problems of doing business in Nigeria. There are many of them, and it's even becoming more popular now.
Yeah, I think because we're running out of time, as we wrap up the conversation, when we talk about Nigeria's growth, if we talk about Africa's growth and the decline in the growth rate, you will see reports that will say we've declined from 5.2% to 4.8%. There are several reasons that they give, and one of the reasons they give is COVID-19. In 2024, can we still refer to COVID-19 as a result why things aren't working out the way they should?
I heard sometimes I'm a resource person with Lagos Business School once in a while. I told them we shouldn't be referring to COVID-19 4 years after COVID-19. And I say so because the impact of COVID-19 ended in 2022. Up to 2024, we should be talking about some other reasons. So please, anybody who tells us it's COVID-19 that is Countries that suffered even worse situations in COVID have gone up, have left us behind with our inflation rate and other things. They have gone beyond where we are. Many African countries have their inflation rates dropping, ours continue to rise. So that means there are fundamental things wrong with us, wrong with our own economy, different from other economies. You know why I keep mentioning African countries? So that we don't compare ourselves with a country like America. We are comparing ourselves with some other African countries.
Yeah, we're still Kenya.
Yes. So,
maybe one day.
A lot of things are happening in Kenya. A lot of things are happening. That's one country that's going to overtake the whole world, well, the whole Africa very soon. You know, so it's unfortunate that we have all the resources to turn around this economy. But we're not taking taking the advantage that we should have to turn the economy around. Very unfortunate.
There's almost no optimism from your end.
That's right. That's not what. That's right.
But anyway, thank you very much for stopping by, Dr. Chijioke Ekechukwu. Great to have had this conversation with you. Let's see what the NESG and, of course, the Nigerian Economic Summit eventually comes up with at the end of the next 3 days.
Yes, thank you very much. Let me take your time.
All right, thank you very much. And this is where we will be wrapping up on Breakfast Central this morning. Thank you very much for staying with us here in the FCT and, of course, in our Lagos studios as well. We're going to be back here again tomorrow. But for the rest of today, continue to watch. And, of course, we'll bring you live feed from the Nigerian Economic Summit here. I am Osaogi Ogbowa.
Absolutely. I am Olive Emodi. And just to mention that the conversations continue on our social media platforms as well. We're tweeting clips and excerpts from the Nigerian Economic Summit. So please do well to engage and interact with the content as it will be beneficial to you. I am Olive Emodi. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll be connecting with Joe Hansen, who is bringing us updates. We have updates regarding the Nigeria economics. But let's quickly head back to our Lagos studio. Let's connect with Mazino.
Well, thank you very much, Olive, but not much here, as I'm also going to be signing off, saying thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Mazino Epelle. Goodbye.